All right. Are you ready to move on to some value dogs then?
Please. I feel really good about this week after. What has happened to us, man?
Dude, it's
why did we ever agree to do this? Why don't we start picking favorites?
It's because the dogs have been underperforming this season. That's what it is. They're 45% on the season against the spread.
We're not at 45%.
We're not, but you're 15-21. That's not bad. All things considered, that's not bad.
I don't know.
Last week, John and I both went 1-2, capitalizing on a week where the underdogs went 5-7-1. So tough week for the underdogs in general. Tough week for your boys. And for that, we are sorry, but we're also competing against each other. It's not for you, it's for us.
I was going to say, keep betting against us if you're smart. I don't feel bad for anybody that's putting large amounts of sums on what we say. Put it the other way. I'm 21-15 at being wrong. That's pretty good.
You love fading yourself, huh?
I don't have that confidence yet. Next year I'm going to feel really good.
The other thing to note is last week the underdogs went 4-9 just straight up. So the underdogs that covered also won the game.
Which we've talked about. Yeah. That there is value there, it seems.
So something to know maybe when we're looking at our picks is like, who are the underdogs we think can win these games outright? That might be who we pick. I'm going to give you first pick this week because I feel like I've had it the last 4.
Yep, and with that in mind, I'm going to go against the advice that you just gave and take the Chicago Bears plus 10 against the Detroit Lions. It's a lot of points. It's too many points. Detroit has been excellent. They've been blowing people out left and right. Last week was a week where they, I should say 2 weeks ago was a week where they struggled a little bit more. And this Bears team is good. That's what it comes down to. I'm terrified of the Lions. I would not normally take a 10-point line, but the Bears defense is a top 5 defense in the NFL. They're a really skilled unit. Their secondary particularly is really nice. Will they struggle with the, dual running back system? Probably, but, everybody has. And offensively, man, the Bears have looked so much better since Shane Waldron got booted out of their camp like he deserved. Caleb's looked a lot better. Their offense looks a lot sharper, a little more dynamic. And the main thing is 10 points is 10 points. I could very much see them losing by 7 or 9 and winning this bet. So it just gives me a lot of room for error. And at 15-21, I need a lot of room.
I'm okay with the pick. I think the Lions as a team, like Vegas, has yet to figure out how to set their line because it's basically like Alabama against Alcorn State. It's like this team could win 52-13. We should have to set it at 21.
Yeah, you can't set the 40-point line.
So I just think eventually they're going to need to bump it up to this Bears team isn't great. Offensively, they've really struggled. But last week, they really were able to perform against a Vikings team that we talked about is really good defensively.
Green Bay. Vikings 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
They've been able to perform the last 2 weeks within their division. I think this is a good line. It just scares me because the Lions feel like
It feels like they start every game with 14 points. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
They just break the game open immediately, and it's like, oh, I guess we're not coming back into play at this. Yeah. You can kind of just put that on the side. But all things said, not a bad take. I'm going to avoid that one with my first pick of our Week 13 value dogs. I am going to take the Dolphins plus 3.5 against the Packers. The Dolphins looked very potent when they played the Patriots this weekend. And I think I took the Patriots plus 7.5, so I was following that one a little bit. And the Patriots basically scored 15 in garbage time. That game was 31-0, and it was over. This Dolphins team looks like they're kind of rounding back into last year's form a little bit when it comes to their offense. And it's just, the Packers looked great. They scored 38 points against the Niners last week, but we just said the Niners defense is a little lackluster. So.
They were also playing Brandon Allen at quarterback. Yeah. So. Not a real Niners team by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I just like this Dolphins team plus 3.5 points. Offensively, they're able to keep up with anybody. So I think this is a game where they could win, and at the very least, you get a field goal and a half.
So I don't like this line, but let me tell you why it's great value. Is because you have to be a week ahead on these things. People are always adjusting the way they think about these teams, and that affects the way these lines go. And I see what you see with the Dolphins. And I'm not there yet to be like, oh, they're back. But if they do it again this week against the Packers, then I will be. And then I'll be too late. By next week, the lines will have adjusted. So you're doing a good job of getting under the wire in terms of I see it. Everyone's probably not on the exact same page about it. Let me dive on it. So I like that aspect. Problem is, one, Packers looked unbelievable last week. Their running game looks really, really good. Jordan Love hasn't even been playing that well, and they've been winning games. And then Tua looked awesome. Jalen Waddle looked awesome. And it makes sense that they could be rounding back into form. Obviously, a lot of injuries, all the Tua stuff with the concussions. This offense hasn't really had a chance to get their feet underneath them this season. So it's not surprising if now is when they're doing that. I don't have the data yet to take this team away from what it has been in weeks past. So I'm staying away, but I appreciate it.
That's fair. Can we talk a little bit about the storyline of the NFC North? Because one of these teams has to lose, right? Like that's just like
no. They're sending 3 teams to the playoffs.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah, 100%. Who's what? You think the Cowboys are getting it?
I think maybe the NFC West will get a second team, but it's like
I don't think so.
Nuts.
I think it'll be 2 from the West, 2 from the North, 1 from the East. I think Jaden Daniels will still get his. Is it just 3 wild cards?
Yeah,
now?
it's only 3. That's the thing.
I don't think the West is getting 1.
Do we think the Commanders are going to fall? Maybe the Commanders might fall off. They've been falling.
They've been playing a lot worse.
But it's like, it feels like the Packers and the Vikings feel like they're locked in basically at this point.
Yeah, I don't see how they could, but who knows?
Maybe root on them losing at some point. Might as well have it be this week.
Yeah, and they'll definitely, both of them play really hard schedules to end the year too, so they'll pick up losses, but are they going to pick up 4 losses out of the last 6 games? Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. Okay, with my second pick of the week, I'm taking the Jets +2 against the Seattle Seahawks. I'm kidding. No way. I'm not that much of a hater. I'm going off the reservation here a little bit. No, I'm not. I'm a chicken. I can't do it.
You don't want to take Raiders +12?
No, I definitely don't want to take Raiders. I was going to be a little more bold. I'm not. I'm dialing it back in. I'm taking the Cardinals +3.5 against the Vikings.
I like that, actually.
Yeah, Vikings barely held on against the Chicago Bears team, which I like, but which has not been playing the best football in the world. Sam Darnold is really coming back down to earth. He's still looking solid, but he is not the guy that everyone was like, who is this to start the year? He's been much more human. Justin Jefferson had an awful week last week. And their defense is, still really good. It's, top 3 in the NFL probably, but they've been looking a little more defeatable, a little more predictable in recent weeks. And I still believe in this Cardinals team. This was a rough loss. Kyler looked really bad against the Hawks. Their running game was trash, but I think their offensive upside is still really high. And their defense is scrappy and, makes big plays. 3.5 is more points than I think this game deserves, considering what both these teams are coming into it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The Bears were +3.5 last week, and they covered.
That's right. Lose by field goal.
And I would say, granted they covered in overtime because they were able to come back late, but I would say that Kyler Murray is a better version of Caleb Williams right now. Do you think so?
Absolutely.
They're basically the same.
That's no disrespect to Caleb. Caleb may be better someday, but Kyler's absolutely better than him right now.
Yeah, and this Vikings team, which I said last week, this Vikings team blitzes all the time. And that's the kind of defense that a guy like Kyler, a guy like Caleb wants to play against. Caleb had, I think, 27 fantasy points this last week. He performed.
He did.
And I think this is the type of game where Kyler can make it be kind of his get-right game. He had a rough game against the Seahawks. Not even really statistically, just they didn't score. But this is the kind of game where Kyler will be able to throw for touchdowns, get his feet moving in a different way than he was able to do against the Seahawks.
Sure.
So I like that line a lot. With my second pick, I am going to take it because it feels like the most obvious line, which could be a little bit erratic to me, but I'm taking the Steelers +3 against the Bengals. The Steelers last week lost to the Browns in 6 inches of snow.
It was insane.
It was nuts.
I kept waiting for them to stop the game.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be over.
Yeah, love that for the refs. They're they'll play.
So I think this is the Steelers need this one. They want to keep a firm hold of the AFC North. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I think the Bengals are out of it. They don't really have a chance to come back in any way. So this is a game that Steelers need, and the Bengals, the Steelers defense is going to be good. They're going to try and be all over Joe Burrow here.
Yeah.
It's a question of can Joe Burrow get the ball out to T. Higgins fast enough, basically. And I think the Steelers have a chance here, especially just to win outright.
Yeah, I would like to say that I want this one will be more competitive because for what it's worth, I think the Bengals offense is better than the Steelers offense.
Yeah,
obviously,
I agree with you.
But the problem is, one, their defense is so bad. If anybody can make Russell Wilson look like a a deserving starting quarterback. It's this Bengals defense. And their offense is so one-dimensional. And Chase Brown has been kind of a welcome explosive addition, but super small usage. This is a team that lives and dies with Joe Burrow and shotgun. And I just think predictable offense dies when it plays the Steelers.
Yeah.
You know, this defense may be the best defense in the NFL right now. Their pass rush is awesome. You know, TJ Watt's a monster, but their secondary is really solid. Their linebacker is really solid. They're just solid at every level, and they play really smart. And yeah, Jamar Chase is kind of a defense breaker, but you know, with 4 quarters of play, and if you're playing one way, I struggle to see the Bengals putting up 25 points.
We saw this happens to the Ravens 2 weeks ago. Like,
yeah,
they put the Ravens in a blender.
They
scored
did
9 points total. It was nuts. So I think you look back a week and it's like, oh, that was in 6 inches of snow. Like that's the reason that game went crazy. Jameis Winston doing crazy things. He could go in the Hall of Fame for his performance there, you know.
And he was great, but he was also like, if you saw his touchdown run on 4th and goal, it's like, no way does he make it there if there isn't 6 inches of snow. Everybody's looking like the, road runners spinning their legs to gather up some acceleration. Unbelievable. I think that's a great call. I think that's a really good one. I'm going to let you have it.
Thanks, man. First time you said good call in a while.
Yeah, but it's just a good line. I just can't bet against my boy Joey B. I just can't do it. He has my heart, and he has my brain too, so I belong to him. Okay, well, with my third pick, I'm going to take the other obvious pick, the other one that I think is kind of rat-liney. So really, parlay these two together and get your absolute heart ripped out when one of these blows it. And that is the Eagles +3 against the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore coming off a really nice win against the LA Chargers. Looked really slow to start. They were down 0-7 after an immediate drive. It looked like, oh, maybe this isn't going to go their way, but they rallied in a big way. Derrick Henry was awesome. Lamar was awesome. They were awesome. The Eagles have been lights out. They've won their last 7 in a row, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and Saquon went from...
Making an MVP case.
Yes, yeah. And he went from looking like an also-ran in the total yards category, I should say rushing yards category, behind Derrick Henry. Henry had that locked up 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Saquon's just had 3 of his last 4 games, he's put up over 250 total scrimmage yards on the ground. He is an absolute monster. I also realized total scrimmage yards on the ground is a paradox. Total scrimmage yards. But he looks unbelievably good. Yeah, making a real MVP case. They're probably they're definitely a more well-rounded team than this Ravens team. What with, A.J. Brown. I believe Devontae Smith is still hurt.
I don't know if he's coming back this week.
Yeah, but they got Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, their offense, and then their defense. It's not as stout against the run as the Ravens defense is, but it's much more balanced. The Ravens have really struggled against the passing attack all year. So I'm really surprised. This was always going to be, it's a tough game to judge, but I'm really surprised it's not Eagles -1.5. If anybody was going to be -3, I thought it would be the Eagles. So to get Eagles +3 seems like free money to me.
This one was a little tricky for me purely because the Ravens' run defense is one of the top in the league. And, you put Saquon against that, that's going to be a really fun, unstoppable force meets an immovable object situation.
Yeah. I wish they could just have them go against each other. They should have one of those devices where each of them puts a shoulder in and they're pressing against each other. And just say whoever gets the other one into the end zone wins the game.
That should be it.
That wouldn't be fair. Derrick Henry probably has 40 pounds on Saquon, but still.
That's fair. I mean, Saquon's got leverage. That's the one thing that he does have.
That's true. He does have leverage.
But at the end of the day, I think it's a question of can Jalen Hurts perform against this Ravens passing defense?
Yeah.
And A.J. Brown's great. He's had some injuries. Devontae Smith, if he's out, that really limits this passing offense by the Eagles, and that's my main concern. I still like the line. I think it's a good pick, but I was concerned that the Eagles just won't be able to keep up.
Yeah, it's also a line for what it's worth that means more, a game, I should say, that means more to the Ravens than it does. The Eagles have, with the way that Dallas and Washington have both really stumbled these last couple of weeks, the Eagles are firmly in control of the East. The Ravens, on the other hand, are in a blood fight for control of the North. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. I guess with that, let's jump into my third and our final value dog of the day. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans plus 5.5 against the Commanders. And the reason that I'm picking this is it feels like another one of the most obvious lines of the week. It's like the Titans just beat the Texans last week, who are what everybody thinks is a great team, and the Commanders are falling. So this could be the game where the Commanders try and get right. But this Titans defense has been really, really good. Like, I think they scored a touchdown last week. And honestly, the Texans scored a defensive touchdown as well. Like, their offense did not perform nearly as well as it feels like they did in that game. Will Levis discreetly has kind of been rounding into form into what we think that he's going to become. You know, he's not going to become a top 5 quarterback in the league, but he'll be decent for the next half decade. So I think this Titans team is finding their footing right now. And I like them against this Commanders team that is slipping backwards the entire last few weeks with their, Kingsbury unable to figure out how this offense can perform. They have made just like no big chunk plays besides that one McLaurin touchdown this last week. So I just think this Titans plus 5.5 line is nice.
Yeah, you better hope it's not close at the end with the ball in Jaden's hands. But you're 100% right. And, I guess it was a little predictable. We do see this happen, not just with rookies, but with NFL teams every year, where, the Commanders came out smoking hot, well beyond anybody's expectations for them prior to the season. And we've really started to see them sink back into those expectations a little bit. It's a good reminder that, when all these people that analyze football all year go into a season and they say the Commanders are going to be pretty mid, and they start out by winning, 6 of their first 7 games, probably some regression to be expected there. Yeah. Jaden's still looked really solid, but he hasn't looked as good. Personally, I believe the conversation between him, Caleb, and Bo for Rookie of the Year.
That's a real conversation.
I think it's a real... I think people have really come around on the Bo Nix conversation and think he has a real chance of stealing it, depending on how the Broncos finish up their season. I honestly think Caleb is in that boat. Caleb's highs have been the highest of all 3. Like, he's had some games where he's looked unbelievably good. His lows are just obviously the lowest of the 3. So anyway, it's been very interesting. Their defense is regressing. They're not nearly as consistent on offense. I hate the Tennessee Titans, but it's hard not to think 5.5 is a reasonable line. Their defense is absolutely a top 3 defense in the NFL. If this defense was on, I'm trying to think of if they were on the Cardinals would be 11-0 right now. I was gonna say 11-1, but they've only played 11 games, I think. So
you're getting there, boss.
Yeah, they would be unbelievable. So just an underappreciated asset in terms of these games. I don't have the stat in front of me. I bet you the Titans are really good against the line this year because people just look at that Will Levis offense and all the pick sixes he threw. He threw a pick 6 in that game, by the way.
That's what it was. That was the defensive score by the touchdown. Texans.
No. Will Levis threw it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Defensive touchdown by the Texans.
Oh, yes. Yeah, 100%. That was what it was. They look at that and say this team's terrible. Their defense is really, really good. So, reasonable line. I like it.
Yeah, I also think, garbage time touchdown. They could be down 10, score a touchdown in the last minute, and it doesn't matter if they go for 2 or go for 1. That's
the hypothetically the great thing about all these lines, and it should be helping us more than it is. That's the whole point of picking value dogs is you're supposed to get the garbage time touchdown to save the plus 3.5 line and stuff like that, and it has not been helping us. But
we'll get there.
Maybe this week.
All right, those are our value dogs for the NFL in Week 13. We hope you enjoyed it. Hey, this is going to be separate as we always do. I separate the value dog segment. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe. We do this every week, and we hope you guys enjoy and hopefully win money, whether you're fading us or not. Yeah. We hope you win money.
We're slaving over this. We don't care if you're betting on us or against us. Just respect the time and effort being put into these horrible picks.